Done a lot of good down here. I'm Whitney Dameron. I'm the chair of the Wildlife and Parks Commission, and I'm going to ask our commissioners to introduce themselves. And I'm going to start to my left with Commissioner Emmerich.
Emmerich Cross, Kansas City.
Delia Lister, Pittsburgh.
Will Carpenter, El Dorado.
Keith Mark, Baser.
Bruce Riedel, Ellenwood.
Our commissioners had the shortest drive for like the first time ever since I've been on the commission. Dr. Delia Lister is with us today. Faculty down here with Pittsburgh State and recent doctorate.
Yep.
Person here in the last year during our tenure. She has a special introduction that she wants to make, and someone's going to make a few comments to us before we roll into the agenda. So
Yeah, I just want to welcome our Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, Chris Childers.
Thank you, Dr. Lister, and to all the members of the commission. I just want to welcome you to Pittsburgh and to the campus of Pittsburgh State University for your meeting. And I want to thank you all for the work you're doing in stewarding Kansas's natural resources and our wildlife and park system. I know our faculty and our students here at the university and in the College of Arts and Sciences benefit from it tremendously. And I see the work that they're able to do because of the resources that we have here in Southeast Kansas and really throughout the state. And it's really quite an exceptional partnership, and I want to thank you all for it. Likewise, as a citizen of Kansas who takes advantage of the outdoor recreation opportunities myself in Southeast Kansas, it's an honor to live in a place where we have access to such wonderful natural resources and the ability to take advantage of those. So on behalf of the university, thank you all for being here today. I know we're all so proud that Dr. Lister, one of our own, is on the commission. And just want to thank you all for your work and welcome you to our campus today. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Question that Commissioner Carpenter reminded me of. Jason, is Commissioner G. Feller online?
I've not seen him come on yet.
Okay, very good. We are missing Warren G. Feller, Commissioner from Russell, who may or may not be here today. At this point in time, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda from anyone for today? Very good. We have the minutes from our June 2026 meeting in Topeka. I know some of you received that late, but if we have a motion to approve, if we had a chance to review those.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes from June 26.
Is there a second to that?
I will second that.
Very good. I assume no discussion, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Number 5 on the agenda, Secretary Kennedy. Time for your remarks. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Appreciate you all being here today and look forward to our meeting. As we look ahead, fall hunting seasons are rapidly approaching. And this is always an exciting time for Kansans, as for many visitors who come here to enjoy our opportunities that our state provides. It's a moment when traditions pick back up, new hunters head into the field, and our public lands and waters become active again. With that excitement, I always want to remind folks about being safe. Be aware of your surroundings, prepare properly, and respect others in the field. I also want to express my appreciation for our law enforcement officers across the department who are helping out every day, helping ensure safe, responsible recreation. Their work is essential, and we should all be grateful for it. I also want to acknowledge the ongoing partnership between the Commission and the agency. Many of the issues we face don't come with a single right or wrong answer. They require judgment, balance, and collaboration. That shared responsibility between the Commission and the agency and the public is what allows us to navigate complex situations thoughtfully. And while we'll have more discussion on specifics shortly, one issue that really illustrates how complex these decisions can be is the longstanding concern about waterfowl hunting pressure on public lands. Kansas offers some of the best waterfowl hunting in the nation, so it's no surprise that hunters from outside of the state want to come here, and we want to continue that. We are proud that our management practices have created opportunities that draw natural interests. At that same time, the pressure residents experience on public lands is real, and it's something we've heard consistently from Kansans. In working through this issue, we've considered a wide range of scenarios. Some were very restrictive, including options like limiting certain days of the week for non-residents. Others were more moderate, like the regulation that's on the agenda today that continues to allow non-residents to hunt any day of the week. Throughout this process, we've taken public input seriously and evaluated every option through the lens of fairness, access, and resource stewardship. What I want to emphasize is that we are all partners in this: residents, non-residents, commission, and the agency. The regulation before you today represents a workable compromise that maintains opportunity, protects resources, and reflects public expectations. And there is more to be considered as we continue to listen and adapt. I remain committed to finding the best balance possible and ensuring everyone feels heard. I thank you all again for your time, your collaboration, and your willingness to tackle difficult issues. I'm confident that continued partnership will keep Kansas a national leader in hunting and resource stewardship. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I have to apologize to everyone here. I've already screwed up the agenda. One thing I did not do was allow staff to introduce themselves. We have met Secretary Kennedy, but to his right is Deputy Secretary Schrag. Can you introduce yourself and let's go around and have
Yep.
everybody up on stage introduce themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stuart Schrag, Deputy Secretary of Operations out of Pratt.
Christopher Kennedy, Secretary of the Topeka office.
Eleazar Hazel, Acting Interim Chief Counsel, also out of the Office of the Secretary.
Jason Dixon, Chief Information Officer out of Pratt.
Josephine Kiefer, minutes. Out of
Okay, we're
Topeka.
back on track. Thank you very much. Some of us attended a JCAR, Joint Committee on Administrative Rules and Regulations Committee earlier this week in Topeka at the State House to review 4 regulations that we have on our agenda for public hearing. Eleazar, are we voting on these today?
Yes, sir. We're going to be voting on the 4 regulations listed here. We'll have a public vote on each one, and then we'll ask for a roll call vote on each regulation.
Very good. I have some general comments, but I'm going to wait until we get through this. Talk a little bit about the process that brought us here. But with that, I will turn it over to you, sir. I believe, are you handling this for us?
Our first presentation will be on KR 115.22 and 23. And we've got Connor O'Flanagan, the Director of Parks.
Very good.
Will present on these regulations.
Connor, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the Commission. Connor O'Flanagan, State Parks Director. As mentioned, here to talk on KR 115 2-2 and 2-3. We have a clicker, Jason?
I missed a step somehow. Share here.
There we go. As mentioned, KR 115 2-2 and 115 2-3, which is it's going to be our camping and our vehicle fees. Again, just to remind you all, you guys have seen all this. Our goal when we started this is to ensure the long-term sustainability and quality of Kansas state parks by adjusting fees to keep pace with rising operational and utility costs while continuing to provide safe, well-maintained, and accessible outdoor recreation for all park guests. And this slide here is really just to give a demonstration on the program cost increase since 2016, or FY16 at 10.8, and then FY25 was 16.2, or a 49% increase in operations. Next would be just the utility costs alone, which again, that's a 45% increase from 2018 that was 1.8 million, and then 2024, 2.6 million. First thing we talk about is annual camping permit. Again, this was established in the 1980s. It's more of a discount program that people can purchase an annual camping permit and then get their daily camping rate taken off every night they use. Essentially, that's caused a loss in revenue every year. As you'll see in the graph on the right, in 2024 specifically, it was a loss in 1.8 million. And so due to that, this has been to remove the annual camping permit. All right, and then the vehicle permit fees. This is just going to be a breakdown for you guys to see the current rates and the proposed rates on the right. Daily vehicle is $5. The proposed would be $8, which still maintains that 1/5 of an annual fee rate. The daily for senior and disabled would be 2.5. Currently, it's going to be moving to 4, which would maintain that 50% discount for seniors and disability. Our annual vehicle permit is currently 25. That would be shifting to 40. And then annual senior, again, that's going to be half that cost of the regular annual, which would be from $12.50 to $20. And then the Easy Pass or DMV Park Passport would be going from $15 to $30 and maintaining that $10 discount if you buy that from the DMV. And then camping rates. Overnight camping currently is $9, shifting that to $15. One utility is $9, moving that to $11. Two utility is $11, going to $13, and then 3 utility is $12, going to $15. Or essentially, that's going to be a $2 increase per utility type that you use. Long-term camping rates. Again, this is we used to have the annual camping permit, which would have a discount for this. Since that's being taken away, the 14-night camping permit we're looking at maintaining, just going to be increased to maintain that 3-night discount, but with the new proposed rates. Again, the annual camping permit would be eliminated. And then the seasonal camping, which is a 30-day camping permit, it's currently a 3-tiered pricing structure. And instead that proposed would be to have a $100 discount based off of the utility type that you would have at that campsite. And this graph just breaks down the economic impact for these, specifically for vehicles. That dark blue would be that revenue generated from the adjusted fees for the DMV Passport or Easy Pass. The yellow is for annual vehicles. The red sliver there is for senior and disability. The light blue is daily. And then it's hard to see, the senior and disability daily is there as well. And then the last one here would be regarding camping fees. With the light blue being overnight camping, dark blue is the 3 utilities. Then there's 2 utilities, 1 utility, and 14-night camping permit. And with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Thank you, Connor. We have questions from the commission.
Connor, I have a question. What kind of feedback have you gotten from the public on these increases?
Sure. I think it's important to remember, we started talking about fee increases back in 2023. It's taken us a long time to get to today. That's caused a lot more strain on our operations as well. It was intentional that we had 5 of our town halls around the state. We had a lot of feedback from people able to explain kind of the reasoning behind the fee increases. We compiled all those and provided those reports to you guys as well. In addition, we've had several commission meetings. There's a lot of concern on the fee rates itself. A lot of it's going to be on why did we wait 10 years is what we've heard a lot. I can't necessarily answer as to why that happened, but the intention is not to just raise rates really high every time we increase rates. Going forward, we would look at smaller fee rates more often. We're not looking at any fee raises in the time being, but to not be in this situation again where we go 10 years without a fee rate and then have to have a hike to make sure we keep operations is what we would do.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure I understand the whole situation. So the state pays the cost for the utilities and the maintenance of the campground and everything that goes along with that. And then these permit purchasers, their money goes to obviously cover the cost of the utilities that they're using to help maintain the property that they're using. Do I understand that metric correct?
Correct. So we're primarily fee funded. And so the vehicle permits, camping permits, all goes into park fee fund, which stays in for park operation.
And if I understand it correctly, we haven't raised rates at all in 10 years?
That'd be
approximately?
correct.
And obviously, and you might not have these numbers, but common sense would tell us that the utility cost to the state has significantly gone up in that 10-year period. Is that fair to assume?
That'd be correct, sir.
And then also the cost of maintaining, we've still kept doing that even at the cost with the rise in inflation in that 10 years without raising the rates at all.
Correct.
It will, and it looks like from the slides there, you're going to raise a significant additional, or at least you anticipate a significant increase in revenue. But you also in an earlier slide showed that the department was losing money at a significant level annually on this venture here. Will the offset or the increase in the fees, will that cover the losses, do you believe?
Yeah, let me go back to this for you, Commissioner Mark. I believe what you're referencing is the revenue loss due to the annual camping permit. And so this is the permit that we're discontinuing just because we can't sustain that revenue loss. And so we're not continuing that program, so we're not going to see these losses going forward.
Are we losing money in the exchange now between paying for the utilities and maintaining the parks and then what we're generating? Or do you have an answer?
As far as
to that?
utilities alone?
Yeah, or all combined. I mean, we're raising the rates for a reason, right?
Sure.
And that's to cover some of the shortfalls that we're seeing. Is that the department's position?
Correct. There's several areas. I think it's something when you look at our parks, there's certain areas that we need to make improvements on, and we can't make improvements on that with the current revenue we have right now. And so making sure that we're going to be sustainable for the future as far as staffing and paying utilities and paying bills and maintaining our parks currently, it's essential that we make these changes. If not, there'd be some drastic reductions in services.
Surprisingly, I received several calls on this issue, and I think other people have heard from constituents in that regard.
Sure.
But if I'm looking at this whole picture here without, not raising fees in 10 years, and then we're obviously seeing an increase in everything around us. And if we want to maintain the parks at a level that the state would be proud of, and that these visitors can be safe, enjoy the parks, it would be the department's recommendation that the commission approve these increases.
It would, yes.
And that's all I have.
Further comments?
I just have one phone call I received this week. Their biggest question was the difference in the cost increase of seasonal camping permits versus the overnight permits. Basically, your overnight utilities are about 40% increase. Your seasonals are going to, 60 to 80% increase. I mean, I understand they were probably way too low to start with, but just to answer her concern, do you have?
Yeah, a lot of that's going to be directly tied with the annual camping permit. And so that's why that was so much more discounted in the past.
Okay.
We're intentional of keeping the $100 discount on top of that, just because we understand that there's going to be some concern from people on if they are going to camp as much or whatnot. And so trying to have those opportunities, it's also why we kept the 14-night camp, to make sure that there is some form of a discount for individuals. We recognize that this is not necessarily the best news that the public wants to hear. I don't think anybody necessarily likes to raise fees, but it's essential for continuing operations of our parks.
Yeah, we understand. Her concern was they would probably camp less.
Right.
Is that worth the offset of you're receiving the same amount of revenue, but you're not providing all those utilities? Do we as departments see that's a worthwhile trade-off?
Yes, when we factored in these economic impact fees as well, we planned for a potential of upwards of 20% reduction of utilization. And so we know that there's going to be some percentage, it's hard to tell right now, of people that aren't going to camp or not camp as much. And so when we were trying to determine what that looks like, that's where we came up with determining a 20% reduction in utilization is how we came to these numbers. So we expect, unfortunately, that some people won't camp as much or camp, but again, it's a position we're in that we have to make adjustments to continue our parks in the current state.
Thanks for clarifying that. I look forward to seeing some improvements on some of the campgrounds, so I hope this helps do that. So, thank you, Connor.
Commissioner Cross, Commissioner Lister, do you have comments? No. Connor, as I recall from the hearings we've had on this before, surrounding states do not have an annual permit.
That's correct.
That would
We're
be
only, I
part of
believe,
this.
one of two states that still has an annual camping permit.
And these fees will remain competitive, if not better than our surrounding states as well.
That's correct, Chairman. The fee rates that we are proposing would still remain at or below all of the regional state park systems. In addition, it's one of those things that we talked about in the past where we won't be competing as much or undercutting private business as well across the state.
At Joint Committee on Administrative Rules and Regulations, there were concerns expressed about the increases here coming essentially all at once because they have not been reviewed or changed over the last 10 years. But there was a recognition from committee members that our parks do need additional funding. There were issues raised in regard to dealing with weeds and mowing and roads and things like that. So I think it's incumbent upon the department, should this go forward, that information is brought back to the legislature with how these funds have been expended and the kind of improvements and enhancements that have been able to be made with the additional revenue. So I do appreciate the work you've done putting this on paper, Connor. If we don't have any more questions from the commission, I think this is the opportunity for the public to weigh in. And we'll start with anyone from the audience, and then Jason will tell me if we have people online. If you'd like to speak to this proposed regulation, please come up to the microphone, identify yourself, and tell us what's on your mind. No pushing or shoving, go one at a time, but please. Okay, very good.
I do have 3 online.
You do have
Chairman.
someone online, Jason? Very good. Good.
Yep. Josiah, I'm gonna allow you to talk now and you should be able to, it'll ask you to unmute.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, give me a second here. I'm gonna pull it up. Appreciate you, commissioners, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. I don't want to completely urge you to reconsider the price increases. I mean, the thought is that it is going to be hard on the general public, and I know that you've accounted for some of the people that aren't going to be able to camp as much or camp at all with some of the increases. You know, it just the initial shock, you know, can be sticker shock to anybody. And we all understand everything has gotten more expensive. I think one of the great things as a camper in Kansas that myself and other people's, you know, have looked forward to is the fact that it's one of the cheaper things to do. And, you know, I've got a complete understanding of the electric and water and general maintenance that has to be done. And I can tell you there's been a significant lack in maintenance in a lot of the parks, and it's probably primarily to the funding. Am I still there with you guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I think the biggest thing is just maintaining that accessibility to the public on the cost side of it. You know, it gets a little bit out of reach. Some of the stuff that I was reading seemed a little more far-fetched than what I was listening to just now. But the other thing I would strongly recommend is just exploring other options. We all pay our taxes on our RVs, to ATVs and everything else. And in my opinion, those funds should be directly funding parks programs. That's what these vehicles are used for, is using in the Kansas state parks. Granted, there are people that travel outside of the state with them, but if we're tagging and taxing those vehicles here, those funds need to be used for that purpose. we're not hauling our campers on state highways on daily basis. We're hauling those campers during the week or whatever days we have off to those parks. And I'm not from a position to help you guys look into it, but there should be other options at looking at the funding for the future, to where we don't have, as the consumer, these massive sticker shock prices that come out of nowhere. And that's all I've got. I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, Osiah. We have questions for Osiah.
No, but I might get to that.
Okay, thank you, Osiah. Commissioner Carpenter, you have a comment?
Yeah, I do. I think that, whether we like it or not, there should be some state general funds used to fund our parks. It's been the legislative agenda for a number of years that there was no SGF over the last probably 10 years. There were no SGF funding, but I maintain that just a fee structure like the $5 a day for driving through the park, or going to $8 to maintain that park, it costs per person a lot more than that $8 that those people spend that day to drive to make sure that that park is there. So there should be SGF money, state general fund money in the park system. However, the legislature is happy with not funding the department with SGF. So we have to do what we have to do in order to maintain our parks.
And I would have just one other comment. I think you guys presented this in a prior meeting, and I did some looking myself. And if you compare the state rates to, say, KOA, we're almost half. If my memory is correct, is that accurate?
That's correct. There's a lot of undercutting private industry and private campgrounds.
Yeah.
With the current rates.
So like so my thought is, well, if I show up at McDonald's and their hamburger's $30, then I'll go down to Wendy's and get a $6 hamburger, right? So if under that type of, fair market type of thing, I mean, it's not like, oh, we're going to lose all these people to KOA because, or these, private entity campgrounds, because they have been significantly higher for a long time. Is that right?
That'd be correct. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else online, Jason?
Yes, we have three more. Have Carla. I'm going to ask you to unmute here.
Hi. Need to turn my. We have two iPads. There is a group of campers here. We are at Webster State Park in Kansas. The majority of people out here are long-term campers. And they are retired campers, or like me, I'm a disabled camper. When you go to raise the long-term camping sites, 60%, we will not be able to camp. This lake is a wonderful lake. It's not very far from any of our houses. We've been camping here for 30, 40 years. You will make it totally impossible for people out here to camp. I have a feeling this lake will probably suffer greatly at the price increases that you are proposing. Anybody else have anything you want to say?
I think it will be by far less than 20%. It will be more like 75 that will not be able to camp out here on long term.
My other question is, I would honestly like to know how many of you on your committee camp. Have a camper, pull your campers and go camping.
Well, I'm not seeing a show of hands.
Oh, Oh, I camp almost every weekend and I'm gonna have to pay these same fees. So trust me, I'm not happy about it and probably gonna camp a little less next year, but it's worth it as long as we can keep having somewhere to take our camper to. If we don't do this, we're not gonna have anything. So I believe this is worth the trade.
Commissioner Mark raised a point a couple of minutes ago that we have, probably all of us received calls from the private sector. The fact that the state competes with the private sector. I know we've heard that on cabins, we've heard it on campgrounds and the like. And the prices that the state has provided sometimes in the past for some of these amenities undercut the private sector, who finds it difficult to compete when they have all of the challenges of being a small business. So that is also something we have to balance here as well. Carla, do you have further comments?
Yes, this is, there is a group of us, so we will, yes.
We've seen graphs showing cost increases in your laws, but never have we seen income, your income. A comparison of the income coming in and the rise, because I know since COVID, there's a much greater increase in camping. So you have to be gaining income at a pretty steady rate.
Well, I would make a comment from my perspective. The revenues that come in from the parks program are used to facilitate the costs and expenses of all parks in the state of Kansas. And you simply cannot focus on those that quote, make a profit, unquote, and ignore the others who maybe don't have the benefit of geography or population. And I think it is clear that the parks are underwater financially, which we've seen, and this is an ability to raise some additional funds to create some shortfalls that we have, whether it's maintenance, road, amenities and the like. But yes, I mean, there certainly are parks that are more popular than others that attract more people, generate more fees, but not all of them have the same benefits. And I feel we as a commission have an obligation to advise the department on how to manage the parks for the benefit of all Kansans as well as our tourists that come in. Just my opinion. Connor, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I would just like to touch on the revenue around COVID. So yes, there was a significant revenue increase when COVID happened. I think it'd be important just to remember though, that the year before in 2019, we had historic flooding in most of our state parks. So there was a lot of rebuilding that took place. So we didn't necessarily see the revenue as you may have thought as keeping it and retaining it. A lot of it was put towards repairing from previous the flooding. So I understand that there's a lot of concern and there's some frustration. Again, this is not intended to push people out of the parks. It's just what we need to do currently to maintain our parks.
Further comment, Carla?
Is your decision today the final decision on this, or can we still get a hold of our representatives? Or do something else to try to not increase it so dramatically? I can see it, everything else, but as the long-term camping goes, 60% is just way out of everybody's budgets. So are you guys the final say if this passes or not?
Connor, if this is approved today, when will it go into effect? Is it upon publication in the Kansas Register or a date set?
I'll let Eleazar.
I can speak to that. So if the regulation is approved today, it will be certified as approved by the secretary, and then I will file it with the Secretary of State. It should then be published in the Kansas Register. 15 days after it's published in the Kansas Register, the regulation will take effect.
Thank you.
And then, and part of the bill that was through the legislature this last session, the fees would go into effect November 1.
Very good.
I'll go to KOA and pay.
Okay,
for those
that,
amenities.
that was pretty much all my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input, Carla. We appreciate it.
Okay, now we have Sherry Robinson. Yeah, she's unmute.
Okay, thank you for your time, sirs. I think you've totally skirted around the whole income issue. I have been a self-employed person for over 40 years, and I have yet to see your income and expense reports. So it's no secret that all of our businesses have suffered higher expenses, but we have yet to see what your actual bottom line is. So that's what I'm asking you for, is what exactly is the bottom line and where are those numbers? And when are you going to share those with us?
Connor, you have a comment?
Sure, I can look into those exact numbers and we can get that out.
Why were they
I'm
not
glad
brought today?
I don't have it in front of me right now. I don't want to guess and speak wrong. I believe our revenue typically is right around $12 million, which is not equal to the expenses that it takes to run our parks today. And so we do have some EDIF dollars that supplement our parks. And then we have some funds from Department Access Road funds that help support our parks. But if the question is, are our current revenues keeping up with the current operations, the answer would be no.
That's still not the answer to what I'm asking. My answer that I'm looking for you for, that we've been asking for this since these started to come out, is where is your profit and loss statements? So we can see if you're asking for a huge increase, that there is no small business in this state that could take an increase like this and be in business next year because their customers wouldn't come. They'd lose it. So it's unconscionable that it took you 10 years, but here we are today. So what I'm asking you for is, why are these numbers not being readily available to the public in a form that we can read a profit and loss statement?
Yeah, I believe those are readily available to the public with our state finances. Is that correct, Eleazar? And so there should be online. Again, Sherry, I don't want to give a number that's not accurate, but it's roughly right around $12 million on average that our revenue is for state parks. And so we can work on that and get that to you, though.
That would be great. So then my other question to you is, and I'm here at Webster also, we have a very active friends group. That friends group is made up of people who camp, and I'm going to say 45 days and more. Those are the people you're going to lose. Those are the people that are not going to be putting money, working diligently to put money into our park. All of our major improvements at this park have been partially funded by the friends group. How are you going to address those issues when you start losing those people are here that are working that way diligently to keep these parks open?
Yeah, I think the question, we're a park system, so there's going to be certain parks that generate revenue. There's going to be certain parks that don't generate revenue. Certain parks have more visitation, certain parks have less. And so we understand that there's going to be some individuals, you all specifically that you're referencing, that may not camp as much or may not camp, which is unfortunate. But in the whole state park system, we're still expecting to have more revenue to keep up with these operational costs.
Because I did the figures on my camping this year. I've spent roughly almost $1,600 camping this year. That's going over to $3,000 if I camp the same amount. That's what you're asking of me. Where do you think that puts people who are nearing retirement, like my husband and I, and our young families?
Sure, I understand your concern, Sherry. I'm not sure exactly where it puts you finances or things like that. Again, this is really strictly because we're at a point where we need to have increased revenue for our parks to operate. Again, we don't have the state general fund dollars currently to keep up with our operations and grow and make the improvements that are needed. And so when we talk earlier about, somebody made a comment about reducing services and mowing and things like that, those are the areas that we've had to make cuts historically with the current fee rates. And so to overcome those, that's why we're proposing these rates now. I understand your comments that this is a higher rate than you'd like, and I wish that was different, but unfortunately, that's where we're at today.
Well, I think that I really believe that you guys are making too big of a jump, too fast. And I think it's going to be a big deterrent. So that's my final comment.
Jerry, we appreciate your comments. Jason, you have someone else online?
Yep, I have a Crystal. I'm gonna ask you to unmute.
Hello.
Hi, Crystal, the floor is yours.
Hi, yes. Thank you all for your time and for all the work you do preserving our Kansas Wildlife and Parks Department. One of my first questions would be to Director Flanagan. You said that the rates have not gone up in over 10 years, but I have our long-term camping increased from $334.50 a month to $434.50 in 2019.
Yeah, so the only fees that were adjusted were, you're correct, the long-term camping or seasonal camping program. That's what was adjusted. The other fees that I'm referencing is all of our other fees, excluding that in cabins, haven't been adjusted since 2016. So if I didn't explain that clearly enough, I apologize.
Thank you. So would there not be a way to increase this rate at a slower rate than all of a sudden at once? And then to include language to keep increasing the rates yearly to keep up with the cost of inflation?
From my understanding, a lot of the point we're at right now is due to the RAINS Act. And so whenever we increase fees, if it's higher than $200,000 per year, it's going to have to go through the legislative session, be attached to a bill. Again, we've been talking about fees, presenting on fees since 2023, and we're just now at a point to where we can make a vote. And so it takes a lot longer. And again, it's not the intention to raise fees every year. There's a lot of issues that come in with when you raise fees. All of our fee boards and signs have to be updated. And I'm not sure that the cost to replace all of those on an annual basis would be beneficial compared to the potential revenue we'd be receiving.
Further comment, Crystal?
Yes. Is there a way to separate these votes today on long-term camping versus their daily camping fees? Or is this all one vote for today?
Eleazar, that'd be your question.
So the regulations before the commission today have already been through an extensive promulgation process. They've been reviewed by the Department of Administration, the Office of the Attorney General with respect to legality, the Secretary of State with respect to technical errors. And if we make any adjustments to the language of the regulation, we'll have to go back to step one and reapprove it with all of those approving agencies again. So unfortunately, there's not a way to partially approve this regulation. The commission does have power under statute to do so, but if you were to do that, we would be pushing these regulations back through the process again.
Further comment,
So
Crystal?
the daily rate is going up 20%, the long-term rate is going up 60%.
Yeah,
What is the
Crystal,
revenue?
again, go ahead, sorry.
What would be the revenue difference on what is made off of long-term camping versus daily rates?
The revenue difference in the estimated revenue, are you asking?
Yes, there was no figures on that
Yeah, can you,
listed online.
Jason, can you get back to the slide?
Let me get it shared real quick.
It looks like that is not on there. Crystal, we have that from a previous presentation. I can get that to you as well. I apologize, that's not included on here for some reason.
At our local campground, we have many members who have camped there for 10+ years, like myself. I don't think that the state is looking at the economic impact of forcing these long-term campers out. Currently, just to let you know, we have a camper. We have a ranger that we have at the lake that we pay a pass of $52.50 a year to have there. We have a boat. We pay property taxes on these items. We buy 7 park passes a year for our vehicles and our children's vehicles. We spend roughly $8,000 a season on gas for all these items at our local grocery stores, for meals, restaurants, and other items purchased at local businesses and boat shops. We also pay property taxes and registration fees on all these items. If we weren't camping for the 4 months out of the season, this would be a loss to this local economies that are around these lakes. And I don't know if anybody's looking at that picture on how much the surrounding communities rely on these figures.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we would be able to calculate that. As far as the economic impact that are here, that's what was required for the bill as to what the economic impact of these rates would be for the agency. So it doesn't have what the communities or economic activity around towns, things like that may be affected.
Was there any studies done on the parks that are losing money? You made a comment that the parks that are losing money, we can't just ignore them just because we have other parks that are financially stable or increasing their revenue funds. With that being said, if you have a boat that keeps having holes in it, you don't keep plugging them. Eventually you have to replace it, or you have to find out what's wrong and get rid of it. So I'm wondering, at what point do we look at the management of some of these other parks and find out why they're in such a deficit and what can we do for those parks and not hurt the parks that are generating the revenue to be sustainable and making improvements?
Yeah, I think it's important again to remember that this is a state park system, and that these state parks serve the state citizens. There's not, I fully believe that there's not a reason that we should delete or remove a state park based on how much revenue it creates or doesn't create. Just because the citizens that are around those areas, and some of those areas are less populated, they still deserve that access to a state park. Currently, I understand the concern on having parks that don't generate the revenue as others. There's other parks that we have that are free entrance for that same reason as well, that just because there may not be a fee to get into the park, those citizens still deserve access to the parks. So I hear what you're saying regarding parks that generate revenue versus parks that lose revenue. I think it's difficult to compare those side by side based off of where they're at, who they serve, their size, things along those lines.
I know our local park just put in a $200,000 concrete golf cart path to the local town. And I understand there was some grant funds. It was a matching fund. So they would have still had to have $100,000 if they were matching that to be able to make this happen. So I'm just looking at, obviously that park has an abundance of funds to be making those type of improvements compared to some other parks.
Sure. So in regards to that, that grant, that's an 80-20 match, so that cost the state $40,000 in park fee funds. That was a grant that was in place for several years that we decided to complete. So I understand the optics may not look great from that, but again, that's something that almost all of our CIs are tied to federal grants.
I see. I think that pushing out the long-term campers is, you're not going to fill the void with weekly or weekend campers. I appreciate your work. I hope that you will rethink the decision to raise the long-term camping rate by over 58% in one season, and understand that I think that the loss of 20% is going to be greater than that. I don't believe that 20% is going to be an accurate figure in the amount of revenue loss that's going to come from these proposed increases. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Crystal.
Oh, sorry, can I add something else?
Sure.
Did we look at out-of-state rates? When you compared out-of-state rates, a lot of your out-of-state vehicle permits are over double the cost of the in-state vehicle permits. And I'm just wondering why we're taxing, or why we're increasing rates for citizens when we can look at the out-of-state residents who aren't paying the property taxes, that aren't usually shopping local, and think that they should have to pay a higher rate.
Sure, that's a good question. We did look at state parks. There's several that have fee rates that are specifically for in-state versus out-of-state. I would remind us that part of that is with Kansas, the DMV passports. You'd encourage you to get your park pass through the DMV, and for in-state residents, that'd be a $10 discount compared to the $40 that out-of-state residents and out-of-state visitors would have, or individuals that didn't get it through the DMV. So there is an option for a $10 discount if you're an in-state resident.
$10, but when you're looking at Nebraska, they're double. So their in-state vehicle permit is $35. Their out-of-state is $70. And then if you get into Colorado, those is over double. Just when we're looking at other states. So that the
Sure.
citizens that are providing tax dollars and local shopping and property tax benefits are not being the ones that are feeling that burden.
Yeah, and again, that's why we maintain that $10 discount for in-state residents. There's always going to be different states that have different structures. There's times too where it's easy to look at a different state and question why their fees are certain ways, but they're not all state park systems are funded the same either. A lot of these neighbors have state general fund dollars that supplement their funds, so they're not as reliant. And so that's why Missouri, for example, they're free entrance. So it's hard to see on the surface level exactly how all these agencies are funded and make decisions based off of that.
I think maybe there was a lot of time spent on this, and it's still pushing the burden onto citizens that are already double and triple paying. Maybe we need to look more at the legislature and find out where the property tax are going on these items that are used for state parks. For example, campers, boats, UTVs, rangers.
That's a good thought. Thank you, Crystal.
But I think out-of-state campers should have to pay more because they're not providing those other assets for our communities. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Jason, do we have anyone else online?
Yes, we have Harold Johnson just raised his hand. I'm gonna ask you to unmute Harold.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. First, I wanted to ask, I had emailed a comment to Megan Dieters. Did those comments get shared with the commission?
Refresh our memory, Harold.
As to what the comments were, or?
Yes.
It was an email I wrote, it was this last weekend that basically, expressing concern with the increase. So I'm seeing, on the entry fees, generally a 57 or 67% increase. And the Easy Pass annual, I'm seeing there's 100% increase in that. And am echoing some of the comments I've heard here in terms of that is such a large percentage increase so quickly. I get the fact that it hasn't been done sooner, but the past is the past. And, we're looking at the future. And while I say that, obviously we don't want the park system to collapse, but I guess I'm not heard anything that says that we're close to collapsing. Is that can these increases be spread out over maybe a 2 or 3 year step to avoid hitting, folks so hard? And specifically to the Easy Pass, when that was proposed, I don't remember how many years ago, it was my understanding, the department wanted to encourage folks to, get it on their registration. On all of my vehicles, do get the registration pass just in case I run one of them out the vehicles. And quite frankly, with a doubling of the increase, I think I currently buy 7. It's probably going to go to about 2. And I think the net will be a loss to the state. And I'm concerned that others may take the position of, oh, well, yeah, we get it, but we don't really ever go to the state parks and drop it. So I think that there may be more of an impact on the downside than what the park system is, figuring in. Also concerned about the camping increases. I get the utility increases. Those seem reasonable to me. I am concerned with the loss of the annual camping permit, but I can see arguments on both sides, for certain parks that have a lot of dry camping where they don't get any income versus my use of it, which is I'm still paying the utility costs. And I just wanted to make sure that, those, and I talked to others within my camping groups about, sharing their thoughts to the commission. And I think several others were going to email in, their thoughts on the increases. And I just was hoping that those had actually gotten to the commission.
Well, I don't know about specific. I looked at my emails a couple of days ago. I don't know that I saw that one in particular, but I rest assured we have all heard comments about this regulation that are similar to what you have to say, Harold.
Yeah, and I know it's a difficult spot to be in, but I guess I would encourage a lot of thought to be given to, the folks that are actually using the park system. It really has a significant impact. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me.
Thank you, Harold. Jason?
I believe, Josiah, I believe you raised your hand. I'll ask you to unmute.
Yeah, I just listened and had a couple other questions, but when do you guys consider your vote? Because it sounds like today's the day it's going to be final, and I understand the whole legislation process that it's got to go through on everything. My biggest thing is, why is it being taxed on the people for the state's mistake and not trying to come up with a plan previous years, let's say the 90s, early 2000s, 2016, of saying we're going to have to gradually increase. We've all known that inflation is here. It's gonna continue to happen. Electric's gonna continue to get more expensive. Other things to look at and the way that it could have been wrote up rather than just, hey, all of a sudden. Why don't we look at just increasing the utility side of it? So if you want to camp in a tent and do that, you know, you're going to pay X amount of dollars, but the people that are going to be camping in the campers, we have to raise the utility rates. It's more understandable, I think, for us as the general public to say, I can understand that because my electric's gone up at my house. I'm paying more for water at my house. You know, we're all in that same situation. I understand that you've been working on this since 2023. Why has it not been drawn up since 2023 that this is going to have to be a gradual increase? This can't be something that's just thrown on people all of a sudden. Back to the previous comment on the impact on local businesses. You know, I'm in central Kansas. We've got a restaurant and stuff. We've got a marina. Those people are going to be firsthand impacted by the amount of traffic that they have from the lake. There will be less people camping. There will be less people that hold those annual passes going out and camping and spending the extra money at the state parks. It will happen, and it will be more than 20%. I know myself, we'll change our plans. We've camped, I think, 16 weekends already this year, some of those longer weekends. I'm a local business owner, so I have the ability to say, hey, I want to go, I want to spend Friday and Monday at the lake and not drive back to my house. I'll drive to the lake instead. I will be one of those people that's not going out there and spending the extra money at that business or the marina or filling up the boat with gas to go fishing for the weekend or filling up the jet ski to go jet ski. This is a bigger impact at a 60% increase than I think you guys could see. I think you're thinking, okay, it's going to sting once, but that sting may last a long time before because at the same time it's costing you guys more money, our daily lives is costing us more money, and the rebound effect of us being able to say, let's go camping this weekend. Well, we're going to have to hold off this weekend because we've got X amount of expenses because this has gone up in our daily lives. And on top of that, our camping fees have jumped 60%, you know, literally overnight. So that's not going to happen. You know, if this all gets wrote up, you've got 15 days or whatever for it to go through the state process and hits before the end of the camping season this year. By the, you know, it's not going to affect the people that probably already have their spots, you know, rented for this year. But by the time it comes next year, I think it's going to hurt the parts program a lot more than what you guys are even looking at. And you guys are voting on it today. It sounds like some of you have already kind of settled on your position that you've got something to do and you have no other opportunity to do anything else. But you definitely need to reconsider your vote on what is this impact going to be, and is this an impact that it's going to take another 5 to 10 years to rebound for us on the amount of revenue that's brought in. There's other ways to draw this up that should have been drawn up previous to now, and that's really all I've got to say. It's just consider your vote that it's going to be a bigger impact than 20%.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask the caller one quick question? If we were to go back to the drawing board today and not vote on this, and we were to come back and say, hey, let's do this incrementally, and we increase, let's say, the 14-day pass by $5.50 a year, and the overnight by 50 or 60 cents a night, would that be a fair way to approach this?
I think it would be definitely a more fair way. You know, even $1 overnight wouldn't be a huge thing. It wouldn't be such a big impact to say.
Right. So just under my logic, if we were to go to the drawing board and increase the the overnight by 50 or 60 cents a night, and then the 14-day permit by maybe $5 and a half a year, that's the kind of increase that you're thinking about. Well, had we gone back 10 years ago and just implemented those small changes, that's where we would be today. And so when you're thinking, I understand the increase hitting your pocketbook overnight, which is, I mean, trust me, we're working families too. But had we, as the department, raised the rates incrementally over 10 years at what you said you thought would be fair, or maybe even a little lower than fair, you were ready to go $1 a year, we would be right where we are today. And the difference is every one of these years, when we didn't raise it, you were able to utilize that money in your family's budget for 10 years. It's a shame that we didn't address this sooner, but I appreciate your comment indicating that if the rates were to go up incrementally at those levels, it would be fair, because that's exactly what's being proposed today. So it kind of you've helped me put this in more perspective for myself. Thanks.
I'd offer another
I
comment
think-
as
I think
well. I know there's concerns raised about the potential impact upon businesses that are surrounding parks that count upon the campers and the people to come buy their goods, to buy their gasoline, diesel, groceries, food, and the like. I think we also, though, turn people away if we can't invest in our parks in a responsible manner, and they come to a park that has challenges with roads, with weeds. I've received numerous calls about challenges with boat docks. So people have challenges with fishing or getting a boat in, or a ramp issue. And if we can't invest in our parks, the people can't come and enjoy them. So there is a benefit, there is an upside that I think from these fees that will allow us to provide greater services, greater opportunities to more people. And I think at the end of the day, that will enhance opportunities for the private sector who are relying upon the people utilizing the state parks. Jason, do we have any further comments online?
We got one. Carla re-raised her hand. I'll ask you to unmute. Oh, wrong person. I'll ask you to unmute, Carla.
Hi, this is Keith Manis, owner of Webster Bait and Tackle here at Webster State Park. I'm on Carla's iPad. I just want to let you guys know, if you do raise the prices like you're saying, you guys are essentially going to kill my business. I just bought this place in April. The long-term camping spots are a big part of my business. And if you guys raise it as much as you do, you guys are going to kill my business.
Make the point that you're already suffering from all water and everything else.
Comments?
I didn't hear him. What is his
I,
business?
Bait shop.
Bait shop.
I'm not familiar with your business, sir. And can you tell us your
Webster
name,
Bait
even
and
though you're
Tackle
on?
at Webster State Park, just right on the edge of the state park.
Too much. I'm sorry, I'll be quiet and let you say that one more time, please.
It's Webster Bait and Tackle, right along the side of Webster State Park in Stockton, Kansas.
Thank you.
And I just bought this place in April. The long-term campers are a big part of my business. And if you guys raise the price like you say you're going to, most of these guys out here said they're not coming back, which that means you guys are essentially killing my business.
Well, I would respectfully disagree. I don't believe it's going to have as drastic of an impact upon public use of parks as one might surmise. I know it's a challenge to go into business for yourself, and I understand apprehension that you might have about anything that changes your business, but the bottom line is nothing is static, certainly in state government funding, and what we're trying to do with the parks with our little universe here. So.
Well, this isn't
You're
Easter.
located next to a park because of the benefit of people being attracted to that area to help your business. But again, there's no guarantees.
Essentially, they don't care about the little guy.
Jason, do we have further comments?
That was the last one.
Okay. Any further comments from the public? Please approach and identify yourself.
Hello, my name's Andrew Knopp. I was listening to the comments just now and your guys' proposed changes, and I had a few questions about the operational costs of the state parks. So in Kansas, they're solely covered by the fees from the camping and day fees and things like that.
Yeah, so there's primarily fee funded. We do get some dollars, roughly, I believe, 4 million EDIF Economic Development Initiative dollars. And then we get some dollars for road maintenance.
Okay.
But that'd be it, yeah.
That's where I was going next. So when you have a shortfall or a deficit, is that what comes into play? What covers the deficit that you mentioned from the long-term camping, like the year to year that was like 1.9 million?
Let me go back to make sure. So this year, are you asking how did we get to that?
Yeah, when you show a deficit that way, then what covers that deficit? Because that was lost revenue, or is that just lost revenue or a deficit?
Correct. So that's, again, the annual camping permit is essentially a discount permit.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was calculated by the revenue we made from selling the permit, and then the amount of nights used with the permit, and that loss, that difference would be that number. And so in 2024 is $1.8 million in lost revenue. So where do we go to make up that revenue? That would be from park fee funds, or EDIF funds to make ends meet. And that's part of where we're at today. There's certain areas where we've had to pinch pennies to make sure that we can make ends meet.
Okay. When you guys say that we are cheaper to visit state parks in Kansas, but Missouri has no daily fees to enter a state park, that doesn't seem like an accurate statement. And I know it's done different in Missouri. It's a tax that they have, and I assume we don't have any kind of tax to operate on for state parks here.
Correct. So when we reference state general fund dollars, that'd be tax dollars. And so we don't receive any state general fund dollars. And again, there's I think constitutional amendments with Missouri that they fund their parks. And so that's why their parks are free.
Mm-hmm.
And so our camping, even at their rates where they're funded, would still be cheaper than Missouri. But we don't get the tax dollars Missouri has. And so it's hard to compare apples to apples because, again, the funding from different states is significantly different.
And anything like that would have to go through the state legislative on taxes or things like that. So you guys are kind of on an island when it comes to this.
Yeah.
To
my understanding,
operational
you have to go
costs.
through legislature for tax dollars, yes.
I see. I think the biggest problem that I hear from the public and is the huge jump, like a 60% jump is large. And Commissioner Mark, like to say that someone would be okay with an incremental raise, like as the guy on the computer said, I think like trying to say that you're trying to go back now. I mean, it is that you're doing a large jump now because of the mistake of not raising them sooner. You know, it's not that you are proposing an incremental raise yearly. It's that the hard part to swallow for everyone is the big jump. So, you know, day late and a dollar short, I guess. But
Yeah, my point was more illustrative.
Yeah.
That what they're asking us to do today as a commission is to scrap all this and then come back with something that is more palatable. And
Right.
in my brain, I asked, would it be more palatable to increase them by $5.50 a year? Would that have been palatable? And they're like, yes. And so in my brain, I'm sitting there
Agreed.
thinking that, look, if you gave me the option right now, it's just like, hey, if I buy a couch at Nebraska Furniture Mart and they say I'm going to pay this exact same amount of money, but I don't have to pay it for 2 years, I do that every time. because I'm holding that couch money and buying some other stuff with it. So in my brain, if the people that are utilizing the parks felt it would have been appropriate for them to pay an incremental increase and maybe do that going forward, which I hope, we all learn from, I wasn't around 10 years ago.
Right.
And so if that amount of incremental payment would have satisfied them, and it would satisfy them if we would change course now and do that, then to me, and I understand it's not the same, but it's like buying a couch. They've owned this couch for 10 years and now they're just but I know that's not what we're doing, but in my mind, I'm just using that kind of as an illustrative way to say this is something that we ought to do. And then the turn of the coin is the fellow that owns the bait shop. What if the park was so run down, no one went? What if we get to the point where we're as citizens not funding, and the people that are actually using these parks on a daily basis are hunters griping about an increase in tags or fees, but that money goes to make sure that we have the wildlife to hunt? What happens if we don't? We just say it's all free, and then there's no wildlife management whatsoever, no biologists here with the department, no game wardens to out there that are ensuring that people are following the rules. Then hunting is gone. And it's the same kind of thing with camping. The people that utilize this ought to be, I think it's a mixed feeling. I get it, but you have to understand that this is going to maintain these Kansas parks to the level that the people that are dropping anchor there are going to enjoy it. I understand all the concerns, and I think it is a large increase, but considering we haven't raised it, considering that we need the money to maintain what they're going to get to utilize, I was somewhat on the fence today when I got here, but I'm going to be a yes vote, just so you know, when I consider all of the factors. Closer call than I really thought when we first brought this to me, but I'm going to be a yes vote because I think it's something that we need to do. And I would just state to the fellow commissioners and the secretary that we need to think really hard. I think Crystal had some really good points. Maybe the next time we raise it, we look more to the out-of-state people, although we're hitting them pretty hard here lately. And if we do it, let's do it more incrementally and not wait 10 years to do it. So I think there's some points on both sides, but I think this is something that has to get done if we want to maintain the excellence of Kansas parks that we all want.
Yeah, I want to see them maintained as well and don't want to lose them for sure. As someone else brought up from the internet, I don't want to see the state just start axing state parks to make it fit the budget that you have for the ones that are used more, because even if they're not used as much, they are by hunters, in the fall and things like that, and people camping in the spring and summer, turkey hunters, all of it. I mean, everyone uses them. So I'd like to see it stay. I think everyone would have liked to have seen it come through incrementally. I had one more quick question. Will the cabins be going up to in cost, the cabin rental?
Cabin rentals are separate from this. They're not going.
Not part of this?
Correct.
Okay. That's all the comments I have.
Thank you,
I
Andrew.
appreciate your time.
One of the logistical challenges we have, and legal counsel referenced this, it's called the RAINS Act. The legislature passed a bill a couple of years ago and said that any regulation that would increase cost by $200,000 a year or $1 million over 5 years must receive legislative approval. So if we went down this path to do it incrementally, then every time that you want to see an increase, if you wanted to do it, for example, 20% over 5 years to get to a level, or 10% or whatever, if we hit that $200,000 threshold, it's going to require a bill. Then it's going to require another set of administrative hearings for rules and regs, and then it's going to require another approval process, and then going back in front of the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules and Regulations. So it becomes extremely challenging and cumbersome to see something like that happen. And I can assure you, trying to take that stair-step approach, the legislature would get tired of it after about 1 or 2 times, saying, you were just here last year with a fee increase, we're not going to do it again. And so the agency, the department, has a challenge trying to put together long-term plans for budgeting and dealing with some of the challenges that do take multi-years to address.
So, Mr. Chairman, I want to make sure I understand that. Because that's what everybody, I think, wants to know. How come we don't do this incrementally? And in a one sentence answer, it's the promulgation process. Is that correct?
That certainly would be a concern that I have.
Yeah.
The challenge.
And I agree with that. And I've been on this board a while, and I've seen this issue ever since day one, and it hasn't changed. And I think that's really the answer for everyone, is that we can't set it incrementally because all of the things that have to happen that you just stated. Okay. Thank you.
Would there be an option to put durable language into a future regulation that allowed for a cost increase, or?
I defer to legal counsel, but I don't believe so. I know, different issue. This year, the legislature passed a bill that said, minimum non-resident, waterfowl stamp would be $100, maximum of $200. But, the way it's said in statute, it's $100, but if we wanted to go to 110, requires the rule and reg process. If that exceeds $200,000, if we wanted to go to 120, 130, 200 or whatever. So each step of the way would require, going back through the legislative process according to legal counsel. Curtis Wired, your predecessor, so I don't speak for Eleazar.
I trust him. He tends to have good opinions.
We have talked to the Attorney General about perhaps revisiting that kind of an issue for some of the things we do, but certainly that's not on the table today.
Okay, I just didn't know if it was possible to set somewhere in there a guaranteed 2% increase every year. There's no way to write that.
Current law, I don't believe so.
Unless it's under 200,000.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Further comments from the commission? From the public?
We do have one more online, sir.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Josiah, I'm gonna ask you to unmute again. There you go, you should be good.
Just going back to what I had said earlier, you guys are taxing the people that use these parks on a mistake that you made. This is a mistake that the state of Kansas and you guys as our park officials have made. You need to consider there's got to be a way to draw this up differently. Yes, there's still going to be people using the state parks, and going forward, I'll still be using them. I'll be limited to how much, but just reconsider the fact, can this be drawn up a different way? Yeah, everything has to work through a legislative process to get done. But are you working for the people, or are you working for how much time are you going to have off because you don't have to work on screwing the people? That's all I have.
I have a comment.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry about that. I think that what we're missing here is, and I think it goes back to the state general fund that I've always advocated for. People in Kansas, the parks are of value to everybody in the state, whether they use them or not. And unfortunately, a lot of people are not using those, and the people that are paying the fees are paying for the parks for the people that are not paying them. We heard a lot of talk about that one gal paying property tax. None of that money goes to the parks. So I think that's something that I've always advocated for. Everybody that's listening online that came in here, I would encourage you to contact your local legislator and tell them that you want a fee structure that is not entirely based on fees that people that use parks, and because there is a value to everybody in the state by having parks. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Further comments, Jason?
That is it.
Very good. Eleazar, I think we're now ready for you. Is that right?
I believe so.
And I want to thank Connor for all of your comments, your presentation, and this hasn't just been today, it's been a history in the last several years that we've had this discussion ongoing. So I appreciate it, Connor.
Yep.
Eleazar, are we ready for a motion?
Yep, we'd be looking for a motion in a second, and then we'll do a roll call vote. Since we don't have Megan today, I'll ask each commissioner to tell me what their vote is once we've got those two things.
Very good. We have a motion.
I'd make a motion that we approve the camping utility fees, 115-2-3.
A second.
And -2, is that correct?
Yep, we need both 2-2 and 2-3.
Okay, and 2-2.
I second.
We have further discussion from the commission? Okay, if you'd call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross.
Yes.
We don't have Gefeller. Commissioner Lister,
Yes.
Commissioner Mark,
Yes.
Commissioner Riedel,
Yes.
Chairman Dameron.
Yes.
Thank you. The next regulation that we have to
For
consider.
the public, my count is that passed 6-0 with Commissioner G. Feller absent.
Correct. Thank you, Chairman. The next regulation that we have a public hearing on will be 115.81. This is our non-resident waterfowl hunting on public lands. From the department, we have Deputy Secretary Stuart Schrog to give us the presentation.
Well, we'll see where this goes, Deputy Secretary, and then we'll take a break. I'm a taskmaster today, so, but if we get bogged down, we'll take a break, so.
Sounds good. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Stuart Schrog, Deputy Secretary of Operations. I appreciate being able to stand before you today and provide you with an opportunity to vote on a proposed regulation change that will positively impact Kansas resident hunters and the waterfowl they pursue on our public lands. As a quick recap of where we've been and where we are now, it was during the 2020-21 season when we saw a significant increase in the number of non-residents coming to Kansas to waterfowl hunt on our most popular and intensively managed wetlands. Since that time, 5 years ago, many Kansas residents have been expressing concern that they no longer have a place to hunt waterfowl on public lands where they historically have. Their concerns also include the ability to pass along waterfowl hunting traditions that Kansans have established, as well as being able to retain our dedicated resident hunters. Public lands managers and wildlife biologists have also been expressing concern relative to the pressure as waterfowl behavior and their use of our managed wetlands are being altered. Resting and dietary needs continue to be an area of concern. The topic of non-resident waterfowl hunting pressure on Kansas public lands has been discussed and researched publicly for many years now, including legislation related to this topic being discussed during the 2025 and 2026 legislative sessions. Since that 2020-21 season, we have seen a continual increase in the number of non-resident hunters coming to waterfowl hunt on Kansas public lands, and the pressure on our Kansas residents and on the resource has not lessened. Now, in reference to the slide that you see here in front of you, during the 2017-2018 season, Kansas sold around 9,800 waterfowl stamps to non-resident hunters. By the 2024-25 season, non-resident stamp sales almost doubled to just over 18,000 stamps sold. During this same period, 2017 through 2024, resident stamp sales have remained steady at 22,000 to 24,000 roughly on an annual basis. Sales to non-resident waterfowl hunters comprise 43%, and I'll get back to that number here in a second. Now comprise 43% of all Kansas waterfowl stamp sales compared to just 24% in 2007. So to state it another way, when looking at this table, the number of non-resident waterfowl hunters purchasing Kansas waterfowl stamps has increased over 200% since the 2007-2008 waterfowl seasons. And just a little update, Tom Bedrowski, our statewide waterfowl coordinator, shared some preliminary information from the most recent 2025-26 season, which indicated an additional 7% increase in non-resident sales since a year ago. Residents a little higher than last year at 4% increase. But what that equates to is non-resident rate of increase is 5 times greater than resident. So now that 43% of all stamp sales is now at 46%.
stamp sales by non-residents. An additional part of our plan, since we began discussing this years ago, was to establish a separate non-resident fee for the waterfowl habitat stamp. And while the 2026 legislature passed this, setting the appropriate fee is still currently within the promulgation process, but we hope to bring that back to the commission to vote on at the November meeting. Our goal has always remained the same since we started this conversation: reduce pressure on waterfowl and our resident hunters on department lands and waters. So today, what you'll be voting on is an amendment to KAR 115.8-1 and adding a subsection within that regulation. So I want, just for clarity, I'm going to go through this step by step and the new language of the amendment to this regulation. So under subsection B, hunting on department lands and waters pursuant to paragraph A1 is subject to the following. Non-residents shall not take migratory waterfowl, coot, sandhill crane, rail, or snipe after 11:59 a.m. of each day authorized to take such wildlife pursuant to federal regulations. Non-residents who are taking migratory waterfowl, coot, sandhill crane, rail, or snipe shall not remain or leave any personal possession on department lands and waters after 12:59 p.m. of each day authorized to take such wildlife pursuant to federal regulations. The restrictions listed in paragraphs B1 and B2 shall not apply to the following. A is non-residents who are exempt pursuant to subsection B of KSA 3290 and amendments thereto. And I want to explain that real quickly. So under 32-980, those exceptions include non-resident active military service member, active duty military service member, and any member of the immediate family of such person who is domiciled with such person, and a non-resident full-time student. Okay, subsection B, non-residents on department lands and waters who are taking wildlife other than migratory waterfowl, coot, sandhill crane, rail, or snipe. Oops, did I go too far? What's going on here? Oops, wrong way, wrong button. I apologize. Okay, subsection C, non-residents on department lands and waters who are taking teal during the September season and light geese in accordance with the Light Goose Conservation Order. And then D, non-residents on walk-in hunting areas or integrated walk-in hunting areas, and non-residents participating in the department's special hunts programs and events. So as we've talked along the way too, we are still working on phase 2, which we're still in the planning phase of, and what we're working on is pre-season lottery draw for non-residents on designated public lands. And we've had several meetings already with our Brant licensing system. Our waterfowl committee is meeting here in September to continue this discussion. Again, you're not voting on phase 2 today, but our goal would to still have that effect by the 27 and 28 waterfowl seasons. And so with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn this back over to you.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary. On a personal note, this has been probably the most controversial issue that I've dealt with in my 2 years on the commission. I've received more calls, comments, and emails. I would also say the direction we are heading, I've received more positive calls, comments, and emails, which is nice. You know, that doesn't always work out that way. So appreciate that, and appreciate the direction we're heading with the lottery and what we're seeing from some other states. So with that, commissioners, do you have comments that you would like to make or questions you would like to ask of the Deputy Secretary? Anyone here? Very good. We have comments from the public in the audience on this proposed regulation. Anyone online, Jason?
Not yet. No, sir.
Amazing. This is amazing. Put that in the minutes. Thank you, Deputy Secretary. So we're now ready for a vote, Eleazar?
Yep, if we could get a motion in a second, then I'll go ahead and call the roll.
I don't think that'll be a problem, but we'll see where we go.
Oh, wait a minute, sir, we did have one.
Okay, we'll
Sorry.
back up half a step. Jason?
Okay, Brent Noah. I'll ask you to unmute here. Should be asking you to unmute so you can. There you go. We're not hearing of you if you're trying to talk. Yep, we're not hearing you, Brent. I'll get his contact information
Okay.
and send him an email.
I received a call from Brent
okay.
Noel. And obviously his concerns, and if maybe he can find a way to unmute himself there and he can speak for himself. But when he telephoned me, he was very concerned with the out-of-state hunters and taking over particular places and marshes and so on and so forth. He was a proponent of change, whether he was 100% on board with this. You know, like everyone else, they realized we're trying to work to a bigger goal was kind of his opinion. I don't want to speak for him, but I think he was in favor, if I remember the phone call, in favor of eventually getting to phase 2, as you mentioned, Mrs. Deputy Secretary. So I think he would, to paraphrase, I think he's in agreement with the step we're taking today, but his opinion would be that it's probably not enough.
Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Deputy Secretary Eleazar. Want to proceed?
Yep, if we could get a motion in a second, then I'll go ahead and call the roll.
I would motion to approve regulation 115.8-1, Department Lands and Waters hunting for harvesting and discharge of firearms.
Second. Further discussion from the commission? Very good. Call the roll at your pleasure.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Lister,
Yes.
Commissioner Mark,
Yes.
Commissioner Riedel,
Yes.
Chairman Dameron.
Yes.
Similar to the previous motion, this passes 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I've been standing up here for 5 years discussing this conversation, this topic. And publicly, I would like to thank the commission, our staff, Mr. Secretary, your support for this, and our dedicated waterfowl hunters for getting us to this point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate everyone's work. I think we've done a good job distilling this down to consensus of something that will be meaningful and helpful to the people who have been to a number of our meetings and have been very helpful in driving this discussion as well. So with that, we're going to take a 7-minute break, which will probably run to 15, but we'll start now. Thank you so much. We got a couple more regulations for public hearings. Deer seasons on military units. Levi, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate it.
All right, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, public and staff. The regulation today is the deer seasons on military subunits. I will give a quick overview again of these. So the three military subunits we have in Kansas are Fort Riley, Fort Leavenworth, and the Smoky Hill Air National Guard Range. This regulation is separate from our normal statewide deer season regulation to help provide better hunting opportunities on these areas to work around the Department of Defense mission activities. And they're, because of those missions, their deer management goals may differ on those properties too. And then historically, we had used this regulation to make changes to statewide seasons after our regular statewide season had approved if something came up that necessitated that. And just to take a hint with this one, as Commissioner Chairman Dameron had pointed out earlier about in some regulations that the legislature quickly tires of us bringing stuff back to them every year. This is one they specifically asked us to try to come up with durable language so we weren't having to run this through every year with the process, especially something like this that is usually fairly uncontroversial. And so this change this year is to actually move this regulation into that durable language away from having to reset the dates for the seasons every single year. I will start with Fort Riley and just give you the changes as to the durable languages. In the briefing book item, the actual dates for what this fall will be are also listed there. But I'm not going to get into those since we're not actually listing those in the regulation this time. So for Fort Riley, their regular firearm will begin the third Saturday of December and run for 12 days or until December 31st, whichever comes first, although it does exclude December 24th and 25th. Those are closed days. But with the 12-day limit, means the maximum number of days they get on the fort for the regular season firearm for them would be the same as what we have for the statewide season. And then for their antlerless only season, they have the Friday following Thanksgiving for 3 days. And then also they follow the January 1st through the second Sunday after the third day of January. What that second Sunday after the third day of January does is it's part of our regular statewide season regulation that prevents our January seasons from being shorter than at least 3 days. We've had some years where some units, because of the way it worked out, would have only had 1 day season in January. So making sure there's adequate time for folks to hunt with that. Moving on to Fort Leavenworth, their firearm season is the same. It's still 12 days, but they break it up over weekends and holidays. So their first segment's the second Saturday prior to Thanksgiving and is 2 days. Their second segment is the Saturday prior to Thanksgiving and is 2 days. The third segment begins on Thanksgiving days, runs for 4 days. And then their fourth segment is the second Saturday after Thanksgiving, because the first Saturday is included in the right after Thanksgiving and is 2 days again. And then their fifth segment is the third Saturday after Thanksgiving for 2 days. And then their whitetail antlerless only season begins on the 1st and runs through the third Saturday after the third day of January, which matches what is going on up in those units up in Unit 19, since they're included in that over 10. And then they also have the extended archery antlerless season in January, which begins the third Monday following January 4th and ends on the 31st. It basically begins the day after their firearms antlerless season ends, and then runs to the end of January 31st, which is the last day of deer hunting in Kansas for our seasons. And then Smoky Hill Air National Guard Range out in Unit 4, they are just going to follow the dates that are established for DMU 4 in our regular statewide seasons. So the other deer seasons that we have in our statewide regulations still apply on these properties unless there's an exceptions, which is generally the regular firearm. And so with that, I would stand for questions.
Thank you, Levi. Do we have questions from the commission? Do we have comments from the public? Nothing online either?
Nothing online.
Very good. Nicely done, Levi.
Thank you.
Eleazar, we ready for a motion? Okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Carpenter. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Do we have discussion from the commission? Very good. If you call the roll, Eleazar?
Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Lister,
Yes.
Commissioner Mark,
Yes.
Commissioner Riedel,
Yes.
Chairman Demrin.
Yes,
Motion passes 6-0. Thank you.
very good. Thank you, Levi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Moving on to the fall turkey season, Jake George, come up and talk to us about that, please.
Hey, thank you, Chairman Dameron, Commissioners, and our visiting and viewing public. At the June Commission meeting, several options regarding the reestablishment of a fall turkey hunting season were presented. Based on discussions and in line with the recommended consensus of the Commission, KAR 115.25.5 was modified and entered into the promulgation process. That process has been completed and we are ready today for a final vote. The changes to KAR 115.25.5 establish a fall turkey season which will be open from October 31st to January 31st. It's an over-the-counter permit for residents only. Allows for the harvest of one bearded bird and is open in units 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, closed in unit 4, which is a draw-only permit for the spring. And with that, I'm glad to stand for any discussion or questions prior to the vote.
Thank you, Jake. From memory, the previous hearing, I think the one we had in Topeka, was suggested some of the challenges of fall turkey would perhaps indicate a success level of 10%, maybe less, give or take.
Correct.
And this is bearded only. So with that, I would open up for other questions from commissioners. So Jake?
What was the staff recommendation?
Staff recommendation was to delay consideration of reopening the fall season for 1 year. That was to basically allow us an additional year of spring harvest data that didn't have any noise introduced from potential, even though slight reduction to spring resident hunter harvest success, which is part of the adaptive harvest management plan.
Further questions from the commission? We have comments from the audience in attendance. Yes, sir. Please come forward, identify yourself again, and let us know what you have to say.
Yeah, my name's Andrew Knopp. I would urge the commission to reconsider and not reestablish fall seasons. I don't feel like our populations warrant that at this point. That was part of the reason for closing it originally. And from what I've seen, they haven't bounced back to levels suitable to have a fall season, especially one that's 3 months long. Even if it is bearded only, we still need male birds to breed hens in the spring and continue the population. So I urge you guys to give it some time and let the birds bounce back.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Further questions from the audience or comments? Jason, we have anyone online?
There are none online.
Very good. Thank you, Jake. Eleazar, on to you.
If we could get a motion to approve, modify, and approve or reject the regulation.
Very good. Do we have a motion from the commission?
I motion to approve regulation 115-25-5.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Carpenter. Do we have discussion from the commission? With that, I think we're ready for a roll call.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Lister,
No.
Commissioner Mark,
Yes.
Commissioner Riedel,
Yes.
Chairman Demron.
Yes.
Thank you. The vote passes 5-1.
Thank you. Thank you, Jake. We're now up to regulations and promulgation. Eleazar, you want to talk to us about non-resident waterfowl stamp fees? Is that you?
Yep, that's me. So currently, the department has 2 regulations going through the promulgation process. The first regulation is the one that you just mentioned, Chairman Dameron. That's our non-resident waterfowl stamp fees. This is also the regulation that will be changing the senior license and adjusting the youth lifetime license. The regulation at the time that this briefing book was published was still with the Department of Administration. As of yesterday, it's made its way to the Office of the Attorney General. Also want to give you all heads up that we will be having a very brief hearing on this regulation today with regards to the economic impact statement. The second regulation that's currently going through promulgation is 115.825. This is the regulation that's going to be making adjustments to the current policy on the use of trail cameras on public lands. Similar to the previous regulation, this one is under legal review with the Office of the Attorney General. Does the commission have any questions regarding the status of regulations in promulgation?
Any questions of Eleazar? Yes, sir. Commissioner Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the second one has already been through the JCAR trail camera.
Neither of these regulations has yet been heard by the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules and Regulations. Underneath the Rules and Regulations Filing Act, the Joint Committee will have a hearing on these regulations once they've been published in the Kansas Register to go to a public hearing. We expect that that Joint Committee on Administrative Rules and Regulations hearing should be happening in October, likely mid to late October.
But the other two, the non-resident was last week, and your seniors?
So this regulation is separate from the non-resident waterfowl hunting regulation that we approved today.
Right.
So this one hasn't been before the Joint Committee yet.
I agree, but the non-resident happened last week.
Correct.
Okay. As well as the senior licenses, was that on the agenda too?
The senior licenses wasn't reviewed by the committee last week. It'll be in October.
Okay, thank you.
And that meeting is scheduled for October 21st from memory.
Okay.
I think rather than kind of opening those two issues up for any kind of public comment, let's just roll into general public comment. And if people want to address those or other matters, feel free to speak to that. So we're going to start with general public comment from those in the audience first. If there are people here who have comments on any matter before the commission that you'd like to address, feel free to approach and tell us what's on your mind. Very good. Anyone online, Jason?
None at this time.
Mr. Chair, I did receive an email from a citizen who didn't feel comfortable with his job coming here and speaking. It would,
You mentioned that, Bruce.
Would you mind
Feel
if I
free to proceed
read it?
as you deem appropriate.
Dear Commission, thank you for taking the time to present this letter today. Due to my professional obligations today, I will not be able to publicly display my name due to an internal policy with my organization. I'm a lifetime Kansas resident and a lifelong hunter. In the past 6 years, the lack of advocacy for the Kansas waterfowl hunter has become increasingly growing epidemic, which Kansas has continuing to suffer. The waterfowl hunting topic has been a popular topic over the past couple of years within the commission and within the state. I find it troublesome that the commission and KDWP is being blamed for not having the ability to control this out-of-control problem, when in reality, the problem lies within state legislation and our elected officials who can implement the change necessary. Currently, the amount of change that is needed and the lack of autonomy the commission has does not allow the commission to effect change. The issue has been attempted to be corrected with multiple different Band-Aid solutions that will cause ripple effects and increase problems even further. The amount of non-resident hunters coming to Kansas, which is ranked 49th percentile in public land access across the United States, it's not sustainable. The resource cannot sustain this amount of pressure, nor can the Kansas residents that live here who pay taxes to reside here. Due to the out-of-control guiding, modern-day market hunting, the average Kansas hunter that hunted on private lands is forced from those lands onto public ground. The amount of private land that has been leased and controlled by commercial outfitting operations has created a compounding effect that the Kansas waterfowl has to endure. These Kansas waterfowlers have lost private access and forced to public grounds to continue their heritage and culture, or feeling the brunt of the Wild West mentality that the state has now become. Now, with the 100% increase in non-resident waterfowl hunters over the last 10 years, the Kansas waterfowler cannot enjoy their time afield within their own state safely. So the common Kansas duck hunter just simply gives up, stops hunting altogether due to their sheer volume seen in the commercial outfitting and non-resident waterfowl hunters invading the public access and private grounds. This is not fair to the Kansas residents that live here and pay taxes to reside in this state. We are slowly but surely losing our ability to exercise our right to hunt our own state due to the amount of volume of people coming to the state. Waterfowl being viewed as a monetary asset by commercial outfitters is fundamentally flawed and against the North American model of conservation. We are stewards of a natural resource, and we need to start acting in a manner that is indicative of conservation and protecting the rights of Kansas hunters. My solution is simple, has been championed for a long time by South Dakota with great success. That is a state draw system for non-resident waterfowl hunting. This is for private and public across the board because this is a problem for private and public grounds. I believe this needs to be uniform and fair, with an allocation cap of 30% of duck stamps sold to non-residents in a lottery system that is purchased in the month of June over a 10-day period. There would be a draw fee that is non-refundable, which is used towards creating money for conservation and positively affecting the economy, defeating concerns for the Range Act, as we're making money on this draw. Once a non-resident is successful in the lottery, they are afforded a select number of days they can hunt only in one of the 2 units they selected to hunt in the lottery. In that selected unit, they are afforded 7 days to hunt. I understand that there is going to be cause for concern for the guiding operations not having income, and to be blunt, waterfowl are not a monetary asset. That is not the state's obligation to make guides profitable for a natural resource. The guiding operations are not managed by KDWP, and they should be. Few guides pay income taxes, with even fewer of the guides having professional training in first aid and CPR. Kansas wildlife are not monetary assets for the financial benefit of commercial hunting or license sales for the state. Kansas waterfowl and Kansas waterfowl hunters are the priority. We're open to sharing our great resource in a controlled manner. However, we are not interested in being forced out of the sport due to non-residents and commercial outfitters taking over this state. The state legislators should be seeking to realign themselves, as well as make the Kansans the priority, because they work for the citizens and need to start voting according with who protects our future hunting heritage and culture. Kansans need to take a stand and protect our heritage and culture before it is too late. Thank you for your time. Respectfully, a Kansas waterfowler.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Commissioner.
And that was verbatim, not my feelings, but I don't disagree with most of what he had to say in there.
We've heard some of that before, and we'll hear more of it in the future, I'm sure, as we continue down this path. Any additional comments? Jason, anyone online?
Nope, not at this time.
Very good. Further comments from commissioners at this time? Okay, we'll keep going. Workshop session. Oh, wait a minute. Skipped over Jake George. Overview of Wildlife Rehabilitation Program. Appreciate this presentation coming up. I know we all get calls from time to time of what do we do about X? Injured deer on the highway. I got one last week of too many foxes running around their property, and what can they do about that? But I saw some of the information presented to us that has regional people and points of contact. So it's very helpful, and appreciate you running through this, Jake. Thank you.
Yep, happy to do so. Mr. Chairman, again, my name is Jake George, Wildlife Division Director. As most of you remember, at our last commission meeting, there were several questions raised pertaining to wildlife rehabilitation permits. As such, I'm here today to provide you with some background and information about the Wildlife Rehabilitation Permit Program. To begin with, what is Wildlife Rehabilitation Permit and why is it required? So per KSA 32-953, a rehabilitation permit is required to perform wildlife rehabilitation services. It is illegal to possess wildlife, injured or not, unless transporting to a rehabilitation permit holder or a licensed veterinarian. Exceptions to this do exist for the possession of specific species if permitted within statute or regulation. Anyone who wishes to perform wildlife rehabilitation services must apply to KDWP for a permit. The application process and requirements are outlined in KAR 115-18-1, which was included in your briefing book. In the following slides, I'll provide an overview of the requirements and process for both obtaining and maintaining the permit. So this will be an overview, not just reading verbatim of that regulation. To be qualified for a wildlife rehabilitation permit, individuals must meet the following criteria. They must be at least 18 years of age. They're required to have 100 hours of experience in the handling and care of wildlife, of which up to 20 hours may be from the successful completion of a training course. They have to provide 3 letters of recommendation regarding their knowledge of wildlife rehabilitation. And finally, they must provide a certificate of training course completion from either the International Wildlife Rehabilitation Council or the National Wildlife Rehabilitators Association, or alternatively, they can complete a KDWP administered exam with a score of 80% or better. Every applicant or existing permittee must have their facilities inspected at least once annually by a KDWP official. These permits are issued annually and cannot be issued until the facility has been inspected and signed off on or approved. Permits are valid for the calendar year, and permit holders are required to reapply each year. Every 3 years, permit holders are required to provide documentation of at least 8 hours of continuing education or training with their renewal application. Permit holders are required to continuously log and maintain record of all wildlife intake and final disposition of all wildlife that were received. This log must be reported to KDWP annually before a renewal permit will be issued. The required provisions of care include consultation as needed with a licensed veterinarian who is specified on the permit, clean cages and the availability of water unless medically required to be withheld, at least daily observation and care. Human contact must be minimized to avoid imprinting. There can be absolutely no contact of wildlife with the public. Wildlife must be housed separately from domestic animals, and public viewing, exhibition, or display of any kind, including electronic, is prohibited. Continued permit possession is dependent upon the annual permit application being complete and containing no false information. They must meet all of the permit requirements. They must not violate any of the permit conditions, and they may not violate any local, state, or federal laws pertaining to wildlife. And of course, the permit has not expired. Also included in your briefing book was a handout which included this map along with the contact information for the permit holders. Currently, there are 18 permit holders throughout 15 counties in Kansas. Hopefully, this will be helpful the next time that you receive a call regarding wildlife rehabilitation. And as a part of our website redesign, we're currently working to improve the way in which this information is made available to the public. On that note, I'd like to take this opportunity to remind everyone that the best course of action is always to leave wildlife wild and let nature take its course. What are often perceived to be abandoned young are not actually abandoned. They should not be disturbed, be minimally disturbed if they're moved to a nearby location where they'll be safe from domestic pets if that happens to be an issue in your yard. Whether alone or injured, it's not always easy to do, but the proper course of action is to leave them be. With that, I thank you and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Jake, I'd have an initial question. I know in the city, so if you find a dog or a cat that's been hit and you take it to the veterinarian, you're probably going to get charged for that, even if it's not your pet, because someone needs to get paid. Are these people volunteers? Are they paid by Wildlife and Parks, or is it just a calling that they take upon themselves as a public?
It is a calling they take upon themselves, and I believe the majority of them operate under donations from people who bring wildlife to them.
Very good. Questions or comments from the commissioners?
Jake, is there any type of chart or sheet that we have that can show the delineation of who we call or who we contact? You know, Chairman Dameron just brought up a cat or a dog. You know, coming from Kansas City, we have animal control.
Yep.
And I guess my question's two-part. Do we have anything like that? Do we work in conjunction with animal control services at the city level or anything at the county level? And, you know, I guess I want to know, who do I call if it's a cat or a dog or it's a deer or a fox?
Yeah, if it's wildlife, it would be a wildlife rehabilitator. I think some of them do work in conjunction with local animal control as far as them bringing something or transporting something to them on occasion, but I don't know if those are formalized agreements, and certainly nothing that the agency has with those departments.
Yeah. You know, for example, I had a deer yesterday. The mom got hit and had 2 fawns, the caller said, and I had her call the game warden. Didn't get a call back, so I'm assuming that was taken care of. So is that the proper protocol for wildlife then? Is this agency or the game warden for that county?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Jake, if you would, just for clarity purposes, because I've been asked this, you might just briefly explain the difference between our rehab permitting program versus our nuisance wildlife damage control permitting.
Sure. Nuisance animal damage control are folks who are permitted to deal with nuisance wildlife, whether that be raccoons in your attic or anything along those lines, a fox under your porch. That would be nuisance animal damage control versus wildlife rehabilitation, or for the injured wildlife that people are bringing in to try to be helped and released. So.
I would like to say a few words. As somebody who works with a lot of wildlife rehabilitators, I briefly did wildlife rehabilitation many moons ago. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about wildlife rehab, and so I'm just going to hit a few points here. So first of all, wildlife rehab is really not necessarily about the animal itself. It's about the people, right? And so sometimes they just have a question, and you can keep that animal in the wild, and that is always the goal, is to keep it in the wild. Sometimes it's coaching them how to put it back in the nest or whatever, if you're talking about a bird, right? And so it really boils down to education, and it's a slog to do that one by one by one, but it's absolutely necessary. 2, Wildlife and Parks talks a lot about engagement. And when somebody calls Wildlife and Parks and they say, sorry, we're not going to help you, that's not a very good, to me anyway, not a good engagement, especially if that person, they may not be a hunter or an angler, but they certainly fully support hunters and anglers. And, you know, I've talked about in the past, a wildlife stamp where people that aren't necessarily hunters and anglers, but are in full support of hunters and anglers, like if they were to voluntarily make that purchase, potentially one avenue for funding for some wildlife rehabilitators could be that. And that would be a way that Wildlife and Parks could have better engagement with that particular group of people. Another thing that I'll point out here is that it's really about responsible stewardship. So we cause, and I don't have the exact number, but I would say 90% of the issues that wildlife rehabilitators have to deal with. And so again, it comes back to education as well, right? And so, but we need to be good stewards of our wildlife. Another thing I can bring up here is disease monitoring. So wildlife rehabilitators are often the folks that are the first ones to find disease that could be potentially pretty damaging to the rest of the wildlife that are out there. The fact that they work on common animals potentially gives us more tools in the toolbox to take care of the ones that are maybe considered a T&E species or something along those lines. I think a lot of folks tend to think that wildlife rehabilitators are just these bleeding hearts that just want to save every baby bunny in the world. And I would say from my experience, the vast majority of wildlife rehabilitators are professionals that have advanced training, advanced knowledge, that are very dedicated, that are paying for this stuff on their backs or trying to get donations. And, you know, when somebody brings an animal to a wildlife rehabilitation facility, they can't say, I need $500, right? They can't do that. And so I just want to, you know, just from as a commissioner, say thank you to all those people, because Wildlife and Parks would have a lot more problems if it weren't for wildlife rehabilitators. And, you know, if you do find animals and you have the ability to donate something, when you ask a rehabilitator to take an animal, you know, consider doing that. And I hope there's a way that we can eventually, as a department, work with wildlife rehabilitators, even if it's small grants or something like that. Because if you want to engage people that aren't hunting and angling, and we need more dollars from people that are not hunting and angling, this is one way that you can do that. And so, I field calls in my profession. I'm not a rehabilitator, but I field calls all the time to coach people and say, this is what you need to do, or this is who you can call, but please leave that animal alone and bring your dog inside. You know, so I just hope that people really understand that this is a real profession, that we do our best to leave the animal in the wild, and we try to prevent as many problems as possible. And I'll just reiterate again, there's an app that you can put on your phone called Animal Help Now. I know nothing about who created it, but it's helpful. And all you have to do is put in your address and it will tell you who the closest rehabilitator is. And so, again, those rehabilitators that are the real pros that are really quite dedicated, they find a way to make it happen. And I just think we need to give a lot of appreciation to those folks. And yeah, if anybody has questions, I'll be happy to answer that whenever. Yeah.
Thank you for your insight.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Jake. Further questions for Jake? Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Now we've got Brian Soward's going to talk to us in a workshop session about fishing and creel limit, followed by Jake George with non-resident waterfowl. But first, let's hear from Brian.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Brian Sowards, Fisheries Division Director. I have 3 different regulation proposals for you today. The first one is regarding the reference document, Kansas Special Size Limits, Creel Limits, and Bait Restriction Tables. This is a reference document that deals with water body specific regulations as it relates to creel and length limits. This particular experimental regulation for sunfish, bluegill, green sunfish, and red ear sunfish was a 6 to 9 inch protected slot, meaning could take those above 9 inches and those below 6 inches. It was unlimited harvest below 6 inches and only 5 greater than 9 inches. This was at Antelope, Jewel, Lenexa, Miami State Fishing Lakes, and Potawatomi State Fishing Lake number 2. A little background here. In 2017, agency staff noticed and were concerned by few 8-inch bluegills seen in our annual sampling efforts. The numbers of large fish had declined statewide. So management and research staff devoted a lot of time to this the last few years. We collected growth information of bluegill across the state, across our public fisheries. We even looked at DNA and genetic diversity of bluegill, and another project where we stocked large adult bluegill. We grew them up, took a couple of years in our hatchery, grew up large bluegill to see if those would initiate a response in growth in some of our populations. And lastly, we identified this experimental regulation as a potential tool to protect fish until they reach 9 inches, hoping that we ultimately would see more 8-inch fish. This regulation went into effect in 2019. The research results, this is just a snippet of the paper, the peer-reviewed article that we published, but essentially no significant change in the bluegill population in these, at least 4 of these 5 reservoirs were noticed after 4 years. So our recommendation is to remove the regulation from the Kansas size limits reference document. And I'll move on to the next one if you want me to, if there's no questions on this one.
Very good. Please, Brian.
Okay, I will continue. The next regulation, again, is in that reference document, Kansas special size limits, creel limits, and bait restriction tables. This one deals with Melvern Reservoir. It's hard to see on that map. Melvern Reservoir, if you're not familiar, is just east and a little north of Emporia, Kansas. Just a little geography there. But this one deals with sauger, saugeye, and walleye populations. I'm going to refer to these 3 species as persids, so I don't have to keep saying all 3 individual names. The regulation is for all 3 species. The current regulation here is 18 inches and 5 a day. Recruitment. Let me hold on one second. Okay, the current regulation is 18 inches and 5 a day. Okay, so I'll get into the data here a little bit and then talk about the proposal. The recruitment that I'm talking about in this graph, you can see a definite increase in recruitment, which means the survival of fish to their first fall. And what we do every fall is we take nets out and we monitor these populations and count the number of young of year, those less than a year old that make it through their first fall. And so what we can see here at Melvern is a definite increase in the recruitment since 2022. Oh, well, why is that? We initiated a research project in 2022 where we stocked equal numbers of walleye and saugeye. And historically, this is a lake where we only stocked walleye up until 2022 when we instigated this research project. Well, as you can see, the increase in recruitment is due to saugeye doing very well. And saugeye is the hybrid between sauger and walleye. So you can see, years and years of walleye produce variable results, but once we started stocking saugeye, we saw some really good benefits to the population. And because of this, we did see increases in recruitment, which overall is good. Unfortunately, at the same time, we see very few fish reaching that 18 inches. If you'll remember, the current length restrictions, 18 inches. Less than 10% of the population has reached that length. A little bit about growth. Graph's hard to see, especially back there, but the top yellow bar is, I believe, hold on, is Pomona Reservoir.
Yes.
In the middle is Clinton Reservoir, and in the bottom light blue is the one we're talking about, Melvern Reservoir persid growth. On the x-axis is age, 0, 1, 2, 3, and on the y-axis on the left is the length for inches. So you can see Melvern grows slower than the other populations, takes longer to reach that 18-inch minimum length limit than it does at the other populations. Typically in Kansas, if you're looking statewide, typically takes about 3 years for a person to reach 18 inches. And you can see at Melbourne is far below that, just about 16 inches on average by age 3. The fourth part of this is more the human part, the creel information. Only 300 fish were harvested by anglers in 2024 creel. So very few fish are being able to be taken home because of slower growth. And very few fish reaching that 18-inch minimum length limit. So the proposal here is to remove that length limit for sauger, saugeye, and walleye, which would then revert it to the statewide length limit, 15 inches, 5 a day. And that's the second one. I can move on to the third one if you want me to, Mr. Chair.
I'd offer a comment. I've heard from people that fished Melbourne that say they catch fish all day long, but the numbers that are 18 inches and larger are few and far between. So it's very consistent with what you're talking about. Other comments from commissioners on this particular regulation?
Do we know why at Melbourne?
Why?
Why is the slower growth rate? Why is it environmental factors?
It's likely directly related to the increase in recruitment. Overall, it's a very good thing. You have more fish, but when you have more fish, you have more mouths to feed with the limited forage that's in the system. So essentially, by not harvesting them over the last 3 years, we've compounded that problem, left more fish in the lake to compete for those limited resources.
Okay.
Which is typically the reason in fisheries management why you might have slow growth.
Thank you.
Mhm. All right.
Number 3?
The third one is 115-2514, specifically dealing with the trout program. I did want to provide a general overview as I did last time in the at the Lindsberg meeting. The bar graphs here show the number of trout permits sold in 2025 versus 2026. If you remember, in between those 2 years is when we changed the permit fee structure, increased it from $10 to $17.50. And so what we've seen from the 2025 is we only lost about 500 permit holders with a pretty substantial increase in the trout permit. But I think that was overall a pretty good thing to see. But the gold or yellow line there shows revenue change. Even though we lost 500 or 600 permittees, we saw a $33,000 increase in permit sales. So the program is getting a little bit more self-sustaining than what it was over a year ago. I just wanted to provide that since we spent a great deal of time talking about the trout permit. So. And what you'll notice in the light blue bar on top, because what we're going to talk about today is a new trout location for Johnson County. So the light blue bar on the top is the proportion of trout permits sold in Johnson County specifically. What you see there is about a 12%. Johnson County makes up about 12% of the trout permits sold. And recently, Wildlife and Parks has taken a partnership with Johnson County to provide fish management for the county. They have removed their fees and allowed us to help with fish management, and they also have asked us to supply trout. And so we wanted to make sure that we have enough trout permits and enough interest in Johnson County before doing that. And what we've seen is we do 12% in the whole state is coming from Johnson County. Not terribly surprising because of the population, but we did want to gauge that interest first. So this particular regulation would add Cedar Creek and Niles Park as a type 1 trout water body in Johnson County. A type 1 trout water is one where you would need or be required to have a trout permit during the trout season, no matter what you're fishing for. So if you're fishing December 1 through March 31st, you need a trout permit. A type 2 is one where you need a trout permit only if you're fishing for or taking trout home. And so because of the interest in Johnson County, we do think there's an opportunity here to increase revenue even more and add an opportunity for that large population. Here's a map showing that location outside of, in Olathe at Cedar Niles Park. On the right, you can see there's a really nice walking path. I think it's paved, and then a creek running through it. So really good access to this relatively unique stream environment trout fishery, which is very rare in the state. I believe we only have 2 or 3 other locations that is a flowing stream where we stock trout. So a very unique situation. The rest are stocked in impoundments, ponds, lakes. Just to reiterate what I've shared with you today, we want to remove the special slot limit for sunfish species at those 5 lakes. We want to remove the 18-inch limit for sauger, saugeye, and walleye at Melbourne Reservoir and add Cedar Creek in Johnson County as a type 1 water body. That's what I have for you today.
We have comments for Brian? We have comments from the public? Comments online?
No, sir.
Very good. Thank you, Brian.
You did ask last time about Johnson County maybe helping foot the bill. And if you wanted me to address that, I would. Somebody asked that question last time. I don't remember.
I recall that.
I think we do feel comfortable knowing that roughly 1,500 trout permits are sold in Johnson County. With the $1,750 a day, that equates to about $21,000. We're currently stocking 20,000 in, so it's a net benefit. And adding Cedar Niles, we feel very confident that number will go up, and so it's sustainable right now. Just wanted to share that with the
Thank you.
commissioners.
Thank you.
If there's no comment, we would like to ask for an informal vote to move this to promulgation.
Very good. Is there a motion to move to promulgation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Voice vote, I believe.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Making progress. Yeah. Okay, Jake George, back up again, non-resident waterfowl stamp fees and senior licenses. I believe this comes out of the legislature in 2026. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Jake George, Wildlife Division Director. Final item I'm going to be covering today is KAR 115-2-1, which is our fee regulation. This information has already been presented to you a couple times and has been moved into promulgation already. What we had neglected to do was the public hearing on the economic assessment of the proposed changes. So that's what the purpose of this presentation today. I'll provide a brief overview of the 3 changes and conclude with a review of the economic impact assessment. First, the non-resident waterfowl stamp fees. Currently, the state waterfowl stamp is $8 regardless of residency status. The proposed change establishes separate resident and non-resident fees. The resident fee would remain at $8, while the non-resident will be set at the statutorily identified minimum of $100. Second, the 10-year senior hunting and fishing combination license. This change reestablishes the fee and option for the senior pass, which covers all years hunting and fishing licenses from age 65 to 74. The recommended fee is $45. This represents a $180 savings for an individual who would have purchased annual licenses beginning at age 65. Finally, the changes to the youth lifetime hunting and fishing combination license for age 5 or younger, there will be no change. For those older than 5, the changes include an extension of the eligible age was 6 or 7. It's proposed to be 6 to 15, and a reduced fee. It was $500 and it's proposed to be changed to $400. Regarding the economic impact assessment, the only compliance costs associated with the proposed changes are for the increase in the non-resident waterfowl stamp. There was no change to the resident waterfowl stamp fee, and changes to both the 10-year senior pass and the youth lifetime combination licenses represent a cost savings or reduced revenue to the department. The change to the non-resident waterfowl stamp fee is an increase of $92. If we assume a 10% decline in stamp sales to non-residents due to pushback from the increased fee and the new limitation to hunting hours on public lands. The overall annual compliance cost estimate of the proposed changes is $1,513,087. With that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Questions from the commission? Any comments or questions from the public? Anyone online, Jason?
Nobody online, sir.
I do.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Clark.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman. So is there a way for us to designate that, profit out of that for habitat, specifically habitat management and improvement on our wildlife areas, or does it have to go into a bucket?
It goes into the Waterfowl Stamp Fund by statute, has its own fund, and it is restricted to be used for wetland habitat management.
Very good. Perfect.
Thank you. Further comments? I think the legislature almost gave us permission to go to $200, but we're not there today. But you know, perhaps as we move down this path and look at kind of the follow-on to this, some kind of a lottery system, I'm sure we'll see some evaluation with what other states are doing and kind of where we're at. But I think this is kind of a two-prong approach to what we're taking here. The one being the restrictions on the water, and number two being the fees that I think can help us address this area and be a benefit to our resident hunters as well as non-resident. So I appreciate your presentation, Jake.
Thank you.
Anything we need to do here?
Yes, if we could have a motion finding either that the costs of the regulation have been accurately determined and are necessary for achieving the legislative intent, or the counter to that, that would help us to meet our requirements under the Rules and Regulations Filing Act.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Once again, we're at general public comment on the agenda. There's additional comments or interest from people in the audience, people or person in the audience. Come back again. Thank you. Please identify yourself one more time.
Andrew Knopf.
Yes.
I just had a question about season dates. The commission sets waterfowl season dates, correct?
Yes, with guidance from the federal government about
Within-
what we're allowed to do.
Within their framework.
Yes.
Yeah. My feelings on the current status of the southeast unit is that our split in the January portion, or the month of January, takes out some of the best hunting time for waterfowlers. It seems like the season starts pretty early compared to just right across the border in Missouri. They're a little bit later. It doesn't open until Thanksgiving or around then, and they have an early split. When that's looked at again, I guess my thoughts is that we would have more success having not an early split versus in January. So I don't know when that's looked at. I know everything's already set for this year, but in the long term, I've heard other people voice the same concerns. So.
Very good. Staff, would you have comments? Deputy Secretary?
I'm going to ask Tom Bodrasky to come up and address those, please.
Thank you, Tom. Please identify yourself for our audience.
Tom Bodrasky, Migratory Game Bird Program Manager, serving out of Great Bend, Kansas. The annual season setting process for waterfowl is usually be starting January in the workshop session. And we work within the federal frameworks, and we take every year considerations, season dates, migration, harvest, hunter participation, and then where we have a season setting matrix based that. We do have a 74-day season to work with, where Missouri has a 60-day season. So we have 2 weeks advantage. So that's why Missouri has probably a later starter date. If we were restricted, we probably would be something similar to a Thanksgiving opener as well. So that's why we see the difference there. But again, that's an annual consideration from input from hunters for those season dates.
Thank you, Tom. Questions for Tom from the commission? Thank you. Andrew, stay tuned, January. Perhaps check in with us again. You bet. Any further public comments from the audience? Anyone online, Jason?
Nobody online, sir.
Very good. Moving on, old business, anything to bring up from staff standpoint? Commission standpoint? Any other business?
I do have one.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Carpenter.
I do have one. You know, there's been talk out there and I visited with some of the outfitters and I'd like for us to take a look at licensing outfitters and guides again. I know there's been pushback from the department to do that, but I think that, and I'm not sure exactly why, I would imagine it's because of the administration of it and the expense, but I do think that, and a lot of the outfitters that I talk to are okay with that and they're fine with it because we have so many fly-by-nighters. We have no regulations. You don't have to have any kind of medical training or anything like that in our state, no liability insurance whatsoever. And they're competing with licensed outfitters and guides that are doing it right. And I'd like to see us take a look at that again myself. So, with the permission of the commission.
I second that as well. I have that in my notes to bring up as well. I think it's a much needed step forward. I think the reputable outfitters will welcome it. You know, at one time I owned an outfitting business myself. And, you know, the guides had to be certified, had to have first aid, survival training, a number of things that if the client got into a bad spot, plus the the outfitter has some responsibility for direct contact and control of their hunter. There's a lot of positives that can come from doing this. And I'd hope that the revenue generated would offset the administrative costs. And in my opinion, this would need to come back, and Commissioner Carpenter and I have gone back and forth or maybe round and round on this topic. But I think we need to revisit landowner tags in Kansas. And this would make the outfitter business more profitable, more sustainable. But contrary to the way the landowner tag, and as a landowner, I had them and now we've lost them. But the way it used to work is my landowner tags, I could transfer them to anybody in the room. They could hunt anywhere in the state. We need to revamp that, in my opinion. And if we give a certain amount of landowner tags, it has to be used on the land that it's given for, and that way the landowner themselves would be responsible for managing their own habitat. If they want to make a separate arrangement with a licensed guide or outfitter, all the better, because then they have some certainty with regard to their income. I think it's a win-win if we sit down and really work on this together as a commission and bring a big comprehensive package to solve and make better the outfitter situation, the landowner tags. This also dovetails into what we're dealing with out-of-state hunters. I know there's some legislators that are unhappy with us constantly, you know, kicking the snot out of the out-of-staters. This could comprehensively solve a lot of problems. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Commissioner Carpenter.
Commissioner Carpenter, point of clarification, we talking hunting or hunting and fishing, guides and outfitters?
I suppose both.
Okay.
I had just thought about hunting, but I think there are fishing guides too.
I do agree that both should be looked at. If you're gonna
Yeah.
do one, why leave out the other? But that could also get some clarification. Are these people guiding hunts on our public lands? Because we don't know who the guides are right now because they're not licensed. And so we do need to be looking into this because I'm hearing a lot of accusations of guiding on public lands that nobody can really prove.
And I'm getting a lot of calls myself about the same thing for anglers on water. as well. And, so.
Points well taken. I've had the calls and communications myself, and if you have challenges from, presented to the public for people who are in the guiding business, there's really nowhere to complain to. There's no enforcement mechanism, and if they're bad actors, there's nothing that keeps them from doing it next week if they did it this week. So it'd be an interesting discussion at the commission level, and I think getting the public to come talk to us about that, both the professional outfitters as well as the public, and what they're seeing, and how they think it impacts them, and what it can and cannot do for hunting and fishing opportunities in Kansas.
What's the appropriate mechanism to make sure that this does get pushed forward, not just, oh, we talked about it and we may talk about it again later? I'd like to get this on an agenda where we actually try to workshop this and figure this out comprehensively.
It would come through me, Commissioner Morgan. I agree with the commission at this point. And I think it's a topic worth discussing in workshop, just like you suggested. So more to come.
Great. I had one other thing that I wanted to bring up. It's kind of revisiting something old with a new twist on it. We heard from one of our in-person comments today about turkey populations, and some people are concerned about the number of turkeys and so on and so forth. And I think we need to do a better job of managing nest predators, which would include virtually all the fur bearers with the exception of beaver and otter and mink and swift. But I think what we ought to do is include raccoons, possum, striped skunk, and so on, and weasels and these other fur bearers to be able to be taken during night vision, during legal night vision times. And I'd like to push that to come to the workshop and bring that up to discussion so we can vote on that as well. I did have a discussion with our law enforcement division, and I don't think they're going to push back on that. We're already having people afield with tags, permits to do it. So it's not going to pose any more regulatory burden on the department. It's not going to raise the law enforcement meter, I don't believe. But it sure could do some good to turkey populations. If we can get enough people, my fear is that we do it, and not enough people get out and take advantage of the opportunity to shoot some more raccoons and shoot some more possum, shoot some more skunks, and so on and so forth. But I would like to push that forward. I hope there's an appetite on the board to at least look at it.
I defer to the secretary on that, and as well as the commissioners. Specifically, in regard to our sunset that we imposed on the night vision. I think we're about 1 year into that. So perhaps at our next meeting, we might at least get a 30,000 foot level of what we've seen, perhaps number of licenses. Maybe we look at a trend for the last 5 years. What law enforcement's experience has been in the last year, and maybe generate some questions for and thoughts for going forward as we look at year 2, year 3 of this 3-year sunset. So personal comment.
I agree, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So to add on to that, I've not checked it out, but I hear all the time about other states doing that. And I think it's important to see to take a look at. I always ask myself, what are other states doing to address these kind of issues? And that might be one that we could take a look at also.
I agree.
I believe even looking into, I think South Dakota did a bounty program.
Yes.
I'd be curious to see how successful that has been on their ground nesting birds or pheasant populations, whether it has an impact or not. Be a really good case study.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Stuart Schrog, Deputy Secretary. I know Jake, George, and the Wildlife Division, and specifically the Night Vision Committee have been discussing a lot of this, compiling this data, and so we can sure have that conversation coming up, because they've already mentioned looking at other states and looking into this. And that committee comprises not just Wildlife Division staff, but law enforcement staff as well. So those are ongoing discussions.
Thank you. Further comments from the commissioners at this point? Okay, I think now we're looking at future meeting dates and locations. Who's taking charge of that?
Normally, Kurt would do it, but in his absence, I'll be trying to take lead on that. I have spoken with department staff, and the data that we're going to need for the January meeting is likely to be ready on a reasonable timetable towards the end of January. So initially, I would propose a Thursday on either the 21st or the 28th of January. We've got a few different potential locations. Lehigh was recently opened. We could also go to Clinton if the commission is interested. And finally, obviously, there's severe weather that time of year from time to time. So if the commission would be more comfortable with having the meeting in Topeka, we could look at that as well. Interested in comments or direction that you may have.
Remind us where the November meeting is.
Will be.
The November meeting will be in Oakley.
Yeah, we have that calendared already. That is the 19th,
Yes,
Buffalo Bill Cultural Center, Oakley.
yes.
Okay. Is there a preference from commissioners of January 21 or 28? And location?
Well, as beautiful as Lehigh is, that is a long drive too.
The other option was Clinton.
Clinton or Topeka were
Clint-
suggestions.
We typically do Topeka in March, April, I
Yeah.
believe, or have. So I'd say a preference to Clinton. I think we have a new facility there that'd be worth taking a look at.
So what day?
21st, 28th, is there any preference from staff?
I think staff might prefer to have the date later, but they expressed that either that first or that second or third Thursday would work, the full week. So the 20th or the 21st, either one would be working.
28.
28th?
Yeah.
Very good. That's as far as we're going, right?
Yep, for today.
Very good. Closing comments from staff? Nope. Closing comments from commissioners? Emmerich, you have any closing comments down the line?
I got a closing question. Is it Clinton State Park or Clinton, Kansas, or?
Clinton State Park.
Clinton State
Okay.
Park, Lawrence.
All right.
That's where I plan to be. So hopefully we're on the same page here. Dr. Lister, anything?
Nope.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Mark?
No, Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Radel?
Nope.
Very good. Thank everyone who attended today. Appreciate the hospitality of Pittsburgh State University and the Bicknell Family Center for the Arts. Appreciate everything staff has done, and I know it takes a lot of work to pull these things off, and hopefully we made progress, and appreciate all you do. Thank you for coming.
What do you think your